Hi, welcome to the Three Bridges podcast, hosted by Limerick Chamber and sponsored by AIB. My name is Sean Golden. I'm the Chief Economist and Director of Policy with Limerick Chamber, and today we're interviewing Conor and Roisin Buckley of Piquant. So Conor, Roisin, welcome. Thank you very much for coming. I suppose to jump straight into it, I've heard you both at various times kind of say, to paraphrase about doing meaningful and creative work from Limerick, from the Midwest. Where did it all start, like going back to the very beginning of Piquant, or, the very beginning of your careers? Like, where did it coalesce into what we all know now as, one of the best design agencies, I think, or creative agencies in Limerick, the Midwest and further afield?
Thanks, that's very nice. When we set this up, and it was Conor set it up first, we had moved out of Dublin and we needed to make work for ourselves outside of Dublin. At that stage, I'd been working in RTE, Conor had been working freelance in Dublin, and it was going great. And then we had a couple of kids and we discovered it was really hard to manage on our own with the kids, me and RTE, and Conor was also travelling a lot because you were doing a bit of lecturing then as well in Cork, Limerick. So it was just hectic, and we had lived in Limerick previously. We loved Limerick. We had a little house here. We said, let's just move back here. And we started from there and built the business over the next 11 years. And it started as a startup of 2, and now it's 22. So there's been a lot of growth in that period, and that's really been facilitated by the work we've been able to get from Limerick and nationwide.
Very good. And I suppose when you're starting out, obviously very daunting, very difficult. How did you secure your first clients? Because I'd imagine these days tendering or even word of mouth is probably a lot of what you do. But in the early days, how do you do it? Like, how do you get on that ladder in a competitive industry?
Limerick has a role to play in that, I suppose. As Roisin said, I was working up in Dublin at a small studio in Stony Batter. I was working really hard, and every job that came through the door I had to take because of the overheads. When I moved to Limerick, those overheads were cut to less than a third, which allowed us to go for the type of work that we wanted to go for. So we could say no to things. We didn't have to do things that we didn't feel would play out in the way we'd like them to play out or build us the portfolio we wanted. So it allowed us to take on the jobs we wanted to. And then once we built a few, just 2 or 3 jobs, people start to recognise you for an approach or for a style. And then the work starts to flow. And Limerick's really good. Like we were in Limerick, only a short period, and we were working for the university, we were working for TUS, we were
for the council
and for the local authority, and we still work with these clients, and so by coming, I suppose, and taking on that work and just setting a standard and the kind of work output that we wanted, we fairly quickly start attracting that work. And in our business, you're only as good as your last job. So it's about it's really important that you put out a good standard of work, and it's really important that you work with clients that allow you to do that work. And setting up in Limerick at the time, it might be different now, but it was an inexpensive place to set up a business. It was a place that you could take risks. At one good job, you could cover your costs for 2 months, 3 months, which would allow you to find the next job. So you weren't panicking. Whereas when I was in Dublin, every job that came through the door, and the studio I was in Dublin was a box. Whereas in Limerick, we had a whole floor and a Georgian building to start doing work. So it was a really great place to start a business back then.
I think the overheads thing is very interesting, because we spoke about it on other episodes of the podcast as well, in terms of doing city centre business. Is it still like that for Limerick, do you think, or is it getting more expensive? Like, obviously we know the challenges over the last year around staffing and electricity and insurance, but
no, it's definitely not still like that. It's definitely not as easy.
And housing is a problem for our team.
Issue.
That's an issue. That's a major issue. We need cool places for creatives to be able to live.
We're trying to attract people to move to Limerick and work with us. We've taken on a few people in the last year. They've moved from Dublin to Limerick, and it's taken them an incredibly long time to find accommodation, and it's hard for them, and in the past we would have reached out, has anyone got a room, has anyone got a space? These are graduates, and nothing comes back, so you've people living in less than ideal situations. So that's a barrier for us. It's a big barrier. We don't want particularly grow into a big company, but we like to be able to hire when the opportunity is there. And, it takes a much longer time to do that now.
Yeah.
And, it's no different to anywhere else in the country. But I feel if Limerick could get this right, there's huge potential for SMEs and obviously the bigger businesses that are trying to grow in Limerick as well,
Yeah, I think the same in a lot of the conversations we have in the chamber. It's kind of whoever unlocks the issue first will reap the greatest rewards.
Yeah.
And that's just looking at it purely from a kind of reward aspect, not, a society aspect, which housing actually is. And with that issue in staffing, like people coming from Dublin to Limerick, normally it's the other way around, so it's good to see it in reverse,
Our mantra, Sean, is that train goes both directions.
That's it. You're dead right. Yeah. And sometimes, like, we forget, like, even people here forget that.
Yeah.
Has it kind of encouraged more remote work within Piquant, or is it kind of?
We've a mix. So probably like most people, we've a hybrid mix. We have some people who are fully remote, and that kind of came out of the pandemic. So people moved back home in many situations, and that was outside of the country, and so now they've stayed where they are, and mostly any new hires are in studio, but we do have maybe people do 1 or 2 days at home, but we do find for creative that it's really important that people can be together, especially around juniors. I think it's easier for seniors to just slot in, but for juniors they're missing a lot if they're not in that creative work environment, because there's a lot of things when you come out of college you don't know about work, and I think you learn just by sitting beside, like if you sit beside our head of brand, you can't help but get better, just if you have him looking over your shoulder at your screen, you're going to get better. So it's a mix.
It's harder with graduates to bring them in on a remote basis. It's really tough, it's really tough to see them progress.
I love remote work now. I have a good hybrid, I suppose, arrangement in the chamber, but thinking back to when I started my career out of college, I would have really struggled.
You're not a junior anymore, Sean.
No. Thanks. I knew someone was going to bring it up, but you're dead right. I think like I would have struggled at the start, and I think especially when you're in a business where you're meeting people constantly, like you, and you're essentially kind of selling yourselves and selling your company, learning how to manage those relationships from the get-go as a junior person is really important. So I agree with you. Essentially, one of the things I've always thought about with, and I know this from my own work in the chamber, you're kind of producing charts and relatively boring content, so you kind of engage a creative person to bring a story to that and bring it alive, and I suppose make it more visually appealing. How do you find balancing the creativity of your business with the commercial aspects of your business? Like, is it kind of a fine line that you have to walk where you can't be too out there and too mad in terms of the things you produce, or are you comfortable in what you've managed to do so far?
I think it's fair to say we have systems in place, and that helps us. So by putting in place a methodology that's everybody on the team knows, and we can share that with the client, it makes it clear what needs to happen throughout a project. And in terms of managing the commerciality side alongside the creative, that's about having a really good brief, and that's something that we can help a client with once we understand what the objective is and who the audience is. That's really what we'll always ask. Who's the audience? What do we need to achieve? And then we can find that balance. Is that fair? Yeah,
that's fair. So there's exploration, there's ultra creativity, there's room for craziness, but with a defined brief. Design underpins everything we do, and design is kind of what's the problem statement, what's the ideal solution, how do we get from A to B, and if that involves a bit of explorative craziness, great, and we do it in a structured way, but we know we'll always come around to the solution at the end of the brief. So it's a design process that allows for that play. And listen, I love a bit of play and a bit of mischief, and I love kind of going, everyone does it that way, why don't we do it another way, why don't we challenge things? But again, if you have a very clear brief, you can explore that and maybe realize it's not the right solution for the client, or it's not the right solution for us. But again, when you put the guardrails on and then kind of allow that room to kind of make a case, and sometimes different people in the studio would make a case to go down one route or another. But again, you're presenting a business case to go outside of the norm, or to challenge the norm,
Yeah, and I suppose like forming that methodology and forming the process, has that been just kind of done organically over years, or was it a case where we have to sit down and get something in place here?
The trajectory of the business actually aligns with us putting proper systems in place.
Yeah.
So for the first 5 years of the business, I think it's safe to say, Conor, do you agree with this, that we operated as almost a group of like-minded freelancers. We were technically a business, but that's how we operated.
Okay.
And we were all in the one room doing the same things together. And in order to grow, that's when we needed to put processes and systems in place. And we did a program with Design Skillnet called Designs for Growth that's really tailored around the creative industry. And that was fantastic. And through that, we learned about becoming a business.
Yeah.
Because we're all from creative backgrounds, so rather than from business backgrounds. So that's where we learned to put the business structures in place, to put the systems and the processes in place, and have that in a way that other people could come in and follow the systems, and we could continue growing the business. And that was transformational. And it was at that point that we really started to grow.
Okay.
And it was a really helpful process. And then 2 years ago, we became EI Enterprise Ireland clients. And I see that as the next stage in our growth and development. And it's taking that the next step up.
Okay. And does that mean if you're EI clients now that you're exporting your services? Are you working abroad, or is that where you want to kind of get to?
Yeah, we've done a number of projects abroad over the last few years. Not a huge percentage of the work we do, but we'd like to do more. We see opportunity for growth, So, we've been a national agency for a number of years, I suppose, and it's about kind of going, there's definitely opportunities. And when we look at the clients we want to work, and we look at the budgets we'd like to get for the work that we do, you have to look further afield in Ireland as well, So we're definitely looking at positioning ourselves that way. It's not to not do what we're currently doing, but it's just looking at opportunities. There's definitely huge opportunities when we speak to people in different markets. To kind of going, there's a huge appetite for an agency like Piquant in London, let's say, or in other parts of the UK, So it's kind of going, okay, the opportunities are there, and when we explore them, they're not too geographically loyal. You just go, okay, well, the opportunities are there, why wouldn't we go for them?
And it's good to hear that you're being supported by EI as well, because I suppose in Ireland, even historically, we've always focused on kind of manufacturing and hard exports, even though we're a heavy service economy when you look at it from it's good to see that focus on it. I wanted to go back, Roisin, something you mentioned about doing the course with the skillnet.
Yeah.
Is that something that's important within your industry, within your business? Is that kind of continuous professional development?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, both for the directors and for the people on our team, and then for the company as a whole as well.
Yeah.
And Ireland is really good for those kind of supports. The design skill nets are brilliant, and I'm always recommending, if somebody hasn't connected in with them before, to do it. And we have a really good industry body called Institute of Designers of Ireland, really supportive. We do lots of work with them. They've helped us in some of the events that we've done here, like GASP, that's our digital industry conference, and that we've collaborated with them on it. But also you've got your local enterprise board. We didn't really work with the local enterprise board. I think by the local enterprise, by the time we discovered they existed, we were past the threshold. We kind of didn't really know about them.
We probably weren't professional enough or organised enough. Like when you look at, if you fill out a grant application, let's just do work, So we never done. Whereas when we get to the next level up, and we learn from the design skill. Now it's about respecting your own time, respecting how you manage things. Don't be doing invoicing at the end of the week. It's just putting structure on things and getting the order in place, and that actually allows you then to be more creative and get involved in the parts of the business that you set it up to do.
And does the education focus on the kind of business aspects of it, or the creative aspects of it, or both, really?
Both and all. And
mostly business, though.
It is mostly business. But we do encourage people to I think it's just great to learn, to do new things. Connor's doing a course at the moment.
Yeah, I'm doing a course.
What are you doing, Connor?
AI in business. So
that was good. This was going to be my next question.
AI is, it's going to change everything in our space. It's already changing everything in our space. I don't think design is going to change fundamentally, but how we deliver the outputs of that design is going to change massively. Sometimes I'm incredibly optimistic about it, and other times I'm incredibly pessimistic, because I think it's going to present huge challenges to society and work as we know it. Everything we do is going to change in the next 5 years, and it's going to change drastically in the next 15 years. So, and possibly in the next year. I'm doing a course up in UCD degree in AI for business, so I've been working out time to try and, weekly to try and understand it and understand how it's working, understand how it works, and just to be adept at it, and just challenging to do that in your schedule. So I said, I'll just get a course and just jump on a course. So it's one day a week, or it's one morning and one evening a week, and it's great. It's great, yeah. It's allowing me to really get into it, and understand it, all the ethics, all the concerns, and all the potential, so in the middle of that, really enjoying it, actually.
Yeah. And do you think, I suppose, looking at the pros and cons of AI, like I can see it even in my own job, if you pull data from the CSO and plug it in, it'll give you out a few talking points, so I might be in trouble in a couple of years. I might be switching over to design. But do you think it'll represent more of a challenge or more of an opportunity for the creative industry?
Both to the end, both up to here. It's going to present huge challenges, definitely, and it's going to create huge opportunities. Yeah. Being able to move with it, being able to understand it, and to make that transition ethically is going to be a challenge. And it can be enjoying. I like learning new stuff. I get bored of stuff pretty quickly, so I like moving on and learning new stuff. But it's going to be a challenge for some people to get through it.
You think it's the same with fire.
Yeah.
We invented that one.
Yeah.
It's got amazing potential, but it also burns down houses.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's actually a good analogy, Roisin, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And like I'm thinking, because when you're in your type of industry, you get a brief, but the brief isn't always what the client actually wants, and you have to read between the lines and have to deliver it and work with them. From your experience with the AI training so far, do you think we'll ever get to that level where it can read between the lines of what a human is asking it? Or
absolutely.
Yeah.
In a very short period of time, I think, as well, so like it's going to do a lot of things better than any of us can do them.
Yeah.
In the next 5 years. So it's but I was listening to a film director, can't remember his name now, an Irish film director, and he was talking about AI in cinema. He says, but AI's never had a hangover. It's not human. It doesn't understand pain. And so I think things will change, and how things are output will change, and the tools we use are going to just change massively, unrecognisably so. But we still need that human connection. People, they like human stories. No one wants to hear about an AI serving someone or something. They want to hear about the human story. So that human connection is going to be really important. But when you bring it back to clients and briefs, clients often come to us with briefs. And this isn't new to AI, but they've often come to us with briefs. We need this, and you're looking and you're going, okay, so we're tendering for this. But in the back of my mind, I'm going, you actually need that. Like when I look, so we've often done that, and we do a project at the start, or we do a workshop at the start of most projects. It's kind of a clearly defined objective is at the heart of all innovative solution, and it's a workshop to understand what the problem the business is facing, or the organization is facing, or the individual is facing. Just get to the root of the problem. Sometimes they say, oh, we need a website, we need this. You're going, well, actually, you possibly need to get your brand and messaging right, and then the website will come after that. So that workshop is really valuable in just working with the client to get to the core of the problem. If we're successful, what have we done? In 3 years' time, if we're successful, what has happened? In 5 years' time, if we're successful, what has happened? And then you can start looking at the tools and the AI and the different things to get to make that journey. But and
I've been involved with that with you as a client in the chamber when we were doing the strategic development pipeline, and I found it very helpful to be able to sit down and talk with a professional, because obviously we had all these ideas in the chamber, but in reality they may or may not have worked in practice, and it was good to be kind of sat down like, this will probably work better than the rest.
It can be really good to bring a group on that journey as well, because sometimes even the most organised organisations that come in with a brief, and even the individuals who are giving you that brief, they'll all have a different understanding of what that brief is. It's been written up, it's been shared in an email, someone's made a few comments on it, and then it's been output, and when we talk to those three people, they kind of have a different understanding of what the outcomes might be. So it's that really getting back to the basics of the problem. Will AI take over a job like that? Possibly. Possibly.
But somebody needs to drive it.
Will it create the human solution at the end? I don't think so. I think it's a while off that. Or why will it be interesting? You
still need a driver. Need somebody to run the machine.
Will AI want to do the initial project, so that's going to be human driven, and the output will have to be human output, so
there's still a place for us for the next couple of years.
Anyway.
Do you find yourself, because we're working on a creative project at the moment in the chamber with a painter, and he generated the stuff from scratch himself, it's all his own art and the rest of it, and we still found ourselves talking about, does this look like AI? Are we getting in a point here where we're totally diluting an artist's work because of AI, and almost every artist now is going to be accused of that's AI, or not even
copywriters and everybody's. So for a copywriter, it's worth putting a mistake in, an obvious mistake, because then they'll know you wrote it.
Yeah.
And from a visual perspective, to avoid perfection. Yeah. So it's really the rise of authenticity.
Okay. Yeah.
And the process, and seeing that someone painted it and seeing them in the room, I make electronic music in my downtime it's my yoga, but so I have a few synthesizers and I lay down tracks, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're rubbish. But I was using AI, a tool called 11 Labs, to make a techno track yesterday. It's pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, it's really good, but it's like, who's everyone to listen to it? And I didn't make it, or I didn't even have the fun of making it. So I think getting back into the process of making, showing the making. So if you're doing a mural or you're doing a painting or whatever, the story of it being created, the artist doing it, that's what makes it interesting, and that's what makes people connect with it.
So like what I'm getting from that is, going forward, definitely for creative industries, is that showing the background of the work is going to become much more important.
Yeah.
As well as showing the final result.
Yeah.
I do.
TikTok has brought us there already. TikTok is a, everyone is around what they're doing. It's not necessarily the output. So every creator, every creative person, even people in all walks of work, non-creative work, it's about, this is what we're doing. We're working on this thing. Everyone's telling the story of what they're doing, and that's interesting.
Yeah, I actually hadn't thought about it like that, and I follow a couple of creators like that on TikTok. People that make shoes or repair shoes or do something that you would probably think is the most boring thing ever until you sit down and look at the process.
Yeah.
Like I follow this stonemason, and he works in Italy, I think.
Yeah.
And it's I would have never thought I'd be I would have never thought I'd be enthralled by some guy with a chisel and a hammer, and I was like, this is incredible. Like, watching the process is far better than actually appreciating the end result.
And you could probably get an AI robotic arm to do that, but it's not that guy's story, is it? And it's his story that makes him compelling.
And I suppose, like, to kind of take a complete pivot, I'm interested about the co-director aspect of your business and how that works. From the outside looking in, it might appear somewhat complicated that you're co-directors. Is it a challenge to kind of manage it internally, or do you very kind of clearly defined, Conor works here, Roisin works here, etc.?
Well, it's important to mention that we are 3 co-directors. So Kevin isn't here. So as I sometimes say, I've 2 co-directors, but I've only 1 husband. But it is a challenge, but because we've got very different divisions, I think, and you might have a different opinion on it, but my feeling on it is that when everybody sticks to their swim lanes and is very clear and respectful of the other people's swim lanes, that's when we are able to work alongside each other the best. It's when we start merging into each other's areas that it can start getting complicated. And we have very different skill sets, and we respect each other's skill sets and respect the way other people do it. So for me, that's how it works.
But,
communication and respect really is the...
and having clear lines.
We're 3 very different people, so and I respect what Roisin and Kevin bring to the table. Sometimes I find it challenging, as you can imagine, but I respect what I'm bad at, I suppose, and I can respect the qualities that they have against the things that maybe I'm not good at. Roisin's great for getting stuff done. I might be kind of,
you're good on the synthesizers,
Roisin will help us realise it, you know what I mean? Or just getting it done and kind of cracking the whip. And Kevin doesn't see problems in anything, as in everything is, you can overcome anything, so he's incredibly optimistic. He's, let's just do it that way. And I was like, Kevin, that's a big project, because we, it's no bother, it's just no sweat, so
he's great.
He's great at just kind of going, okay, and he just start doing it and emailing people the next minute. It's like, Kevin, he just goes, so in that sense, it's good, it works well.
I like having those 3 distinct people, 3 legs of a stool type of thing. Like, it obviously works, and I even know that myself in the chamber. It's a small team where only kind of 7 or 8 people, but having those strong people around you to help with the decision making is
I think so, because I talk to some business owners who are just themselves,
and it's lonely.
It is lonely, and there's just having somebody to bounce off who has the best interests of the company at heart as well. I think I would struggle more having just been on my own. That's my thoughts. How are you?
Sometimes we could segment things a bit more. We do spend a lot of time working on the business. We do spend a lot of time talking about the business.
Yeah,
because there's three of us, so the conversation can go on sometimes. But it probably adds to the robustness of the situations where we validate decisions by having those discussions. So it's a good thing, But sometimes are we having this discussion again? So just because there's three of us, and I'm guessing, if you were a dictator, you just go, that's what I'm doing. That's what we should do. But it's good we're not a dictatorship.
No, it's all done by
it's all done by consensus.
Yeah, by consensus always. Yeah.
And that's good. And I suppose like one of the roles of the board in the chamber kind of fulfills that as well for us. Because at the end of the day, there's one CEO and out there supported by the rest of us.
Yeah.
But it's good to have the board there then as well, and loads of them have totally different perspectives from.
You have a very interesting board at the moment.
We do, yeah. I think we've it's 18 or 19 board members. And they're from kind of vastly different backgrounds. You've multinationals, one person operations, etc. So it's good, and I suppose for all of them, the most important thing I suppose is almost putting on the Limerick jersey and trying to drive it forward. So I like working with them. It's totally different to what I would have done in the past in that type of environment, but I suppose back to Piquant, sometimes with creative companies they can be seen as just graphic designers, and them, or they might have started that way, but when you look at what you actually produce and what's on your website, it's graphic design, digital storytelling. Storytelling is such a big part of what you do through various mediums. Was there a point when you started where you were just kind of focusing on one thing and you made the conscious decision to diversify, or did it just kind of happen organically over the last 10 or so years, or what way did you kind of expand your whole offering that you're doing now? Because you seem to do almost as much that can be done, except for oil painting or synthesizer work, but you do a lot, to be fair.
Do you know what? Part of that comes out of the regional piece. So my background is in storytelling, so my background's in RTE as a producer and director there, whereas Connor's background is in visual communications, and so is Kevin, and then Connor specialises in the website of things as well. But because where we were in Limerick, as clients asked for things, and there weren't maybe many people doing those things, probably if the business was in Dublin, we mightn't have brought in as many aspects, but we just got people to join us, to do it with us. And but what we did always keep at the heart of everything was that storytelling piece. Yeah.
And I suppose, did you find, was there a fear, people were coming to you looking for something that you might not have done previously or you didn't do a lot of, and then you're like, we'll give it a go. Was there ever a confidence issue or a fear issue where you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to commit to this because I'm not sure we can do it, and then you did it and it worked, then you're still doing it now? Or were you confident in your ability?
Happen, but that storytelling, Roisin would drive it from a storytelling perspective, as in, what's the narrative, who we connecting with? I would come at it from a design perspective. What's the problem? What are we going to fix? And that's always there. Mediums always change, and taking on all those mediums, working all those different spaces has been challenging at times, and sometimes you feel, geez, we're not focused enough, and people like working with specialists, and I would consider ourselves specialists in designing problems for communication solutions. The mediums will change, and they're going to change more in the next few years, so there's been times, I suppose, we're kind of going, geez, we're doing a lot. If we focus, maybe streamline, it could be better. But then at other times, doing a lot has allowed us take on bigger projects with clients that need a lot. We never wanted to be a big agency. We're 22 people now.
I would define that as big now.
It is big.
Yeah. Fair play.
We didn't map that out, or it wasn't the goal to kind of do that. But when you want to do work at a certain quality, you need good people. Yeah. You need depth in those positions, so you're a reliable company. If someone goes off sick, we've only one person that does that. Panic stations. So we want to be a good company. We want to offer the service well, and that's kind of necessitate us growing to a certain size, like the average design agency in Limerick, in Ireland, is about 4 people, in size, so we're significantly bigger than that. But
so you're like a multinational within the design world, really. You're never getting rid of that tag now. I'm only joking.
But you don't, the goal isn't to grow big or to take on loads of people, but you want to do things well. You want to do things well, but graphic design, video production, marketing, they were all separate. They're not anymore, and brand underpins a lot of it, so brand kind of crossover. So there's brand's reputation, building a reputation over time, communicating successfully over time, being cohesive in your communication. All of these fall under brand from my perspective, you know.
Yeah, but if you think when we first started, and so video, that side of it was me, and the design and the website, Connor and Kevin, and in a video, the motion graphics, we wouldn't even necessarily call it that, the graphics, what came at the end. So you'd finish your video and then give it to a designer to add the bits of graphics to it. But now it's completely different. They're completely entwined, and they've just been getting closer and closer together. And that's because of the technology.
Yeah.
And that's been really interesting to see that space change. And so because we've had all those skill sets, it's meant that we've been able to adapt to the technological changes, and not just adapt to them, kind of charge ahead and innovate with them. And that's been really exciting. So we have an incredibly talented team. They all know loads of things. They're very, very specialist in their areas. And it is really great to see when they work together and what they can bring for the client. And I think that's been the advantage of having the multidisciplinary approach.
Yeah. And I suppose what way, Conor, you mentioned that, you know, you can see the mediums changing over the next, you know, couple of years or whatever. What way do you think it's going to go? How much more can it change, really? You know,
it can change a lot. Like, will Google exist in 3 years? In 5 years? And how we use the search for a keyword website opens? You know, will that even happen? You know what I mean? So you know, it's hard to know if it will.
You know, when you Google something now and you get that summary,
the AI summary. Yeah,
you didn't have that 6 months ago.
Yeah.
You've just completely adapted to it and presumed it's normal.
And there's a new version of that coming. It was launched in Poland this morning. One of our colleagues is based in Poland. He sent me a screen grab where he'd done a search for Piquant. You just see it, like, it's a lot more information in that small screen. It hasn't launched in Ireland yet, but it launched in Poland this morning. And he's showing the search results, and they're completely different than what you expect. And Google have to change, because I'm going to ChatGPT for searches now. I'm not going to Google anymore. If it's something particular I ask in a very particular way and I get a very particular answer, that will have links back to the sources that I know I'll look for. I know it'll take longer to find that through Google. So, you know, Google seemed unshakable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They owned the whole market for the last 20 years, and now, you know, in 3 months it can be gone. 16 months it's gone. You know what I mean? And it could be gone again. Listen, no fear of Google, they survive. But, you know, how we do things is changing all the time. If you've used the automated talking to ChatGPT, you know, how does that come back to you? So, you know, I see audio playing a huge role in brand. You know, everything's going to change. You know, so I don't know how it's going to change, but I know it will.
But humans are very adaptable. You know, we just,
so.
And sometimes only when you pause and look back and go, God, that's all completely changed in 5 years.
And it's interesting because humans are, but I'm not sure the economy is that adaptable as well.
That's a really good point.
That would be the concern. Like, you know, like even like I know Sora hasn't launched here yet, and I don't know do I want it to launch here or not. But I've seen some of the videos coming out of that app in the States, and
so that was released 2 weeks ago. And if you see, if you went on to Instagram or TikTok in the last 2 weeks, like, the output has completely changed. The vibe of the two channels has completely changed. All that Jake Paul kind of meme stuff that's going on, like, it's incredibly realistic.
It is.
And,
it didn't have the watermark. I mean,
video has always had a kind of sense of truth about it, you know, as in, it's a video, so it happened, you know, unless it was created like a big production house or a cinema or something. But if it's a handheld video of a phone, you kind of go, that probably happened. So if evidence was produced in a court case or to support a media campaign that something happened, whereas that's gone now. There's no truth anymore in that sense. So, you know, media literacy is going to be a huge thing, and how we create content that goes into that space that's read and consumed by people is going to change. It's changing, you know.
And I suppose on the topic of AI, and, you know, we're all aware of the energy costs associated with AI. You launched a sustainable operations policy a couple of years ago, or so ChatGPT tells me. You know, I'm joking. I saw you planting trees.
You burnt out the trees.
What brought you to actually do that? You know, I know for some industries it's difficult to do it, and then for other industries it's slightly easier to do it.
So we're values focused agency, and sustainability is one of our core 5 values, and we decided to have a look at if we're actually doing it rather than just saying it. And we put together the policy probably in about 2021, and it might seem naive now, but the biggest surprise then was that our largest energy use wasn't what we presumed, which was travel. It was our data storage. And I know that's obvious to everybody now, but that awareness wasn't there then about how much energy it takes to store and hold and keep that data cool. Now it's gone crazy now because of the quality of the footage and that everybody's creating content all the time and throwing it up into a cloud, and a cloud sounds nice and fluffy. It's not. It's a hard server somewhere powered by electricity. So that's where it came out of. And it was, that saying, ignorance is bliss, you know, it was. And then we found, okay, this is a real problem. In order for us to survive, we have to generate electricity. We have to create carbon emissions. Otherwise, the only way not to do that is to literally go barefoot and live in a bush. But by working, we are doing that. So we looked at the approaches that we could take. And some people look at that offset piece, which didn't sit easy with us as well. That just didn't sound like a really kind of true and meaningful way of doing it. So that's when we looked at what we can do in how we work to be have sustainable ethos and ethics within what we do. And one of the things we decided to do was we said, let's plant loads of trees. We'll buy some land and plant loads. Turns out that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do.
Harder on the back, I'd say. Well,
actually finding the land and getting all of that.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a whole thing out there.
I would have assumed you could just, if it, you can throw down a couple of seeds on a bit of land, but
you can. But when you're accompanying you to go and buy it, it was all sorts of stuff. But we found this really great co-op called Ondura, and they are a co-op which completely aligns with one of our other values, which is community. And they and I'm on the board of it now. So we buy land as a co-op, and then we have forestry companies that are doing all the forestry correctly, along with as they're required legally, plant the trees. And so that's working really, really well. And that's that came out of our sustainable policy kind of exploration.
It's a biodiversity project as much as a kind of carbon project, because you'd be a long time planting trees to reduce the carbon that's been used by technology.
By data,
but it's it's native Irish trees.
Yes,
native
that's
Irish
important.
trees that which aren't being planted by private companies. So it's native Irish trees the focus.
And it's great. It's great to see someone, because I think almost every company or organisation has a strategy document.
Yeah.
Everyone has these 5 core values.
You're right.
But it's good to see someone translating them from a bit of paper actually into actionable values. Like it's not often you would see it so much or so obvious.
We didn't just want to do just for the box ticking. That wasn't why we got to do into that. So,
but it does make business sense as well. There is a business logic to it. When we apply for government jobs and we apply for jobs with agencies that are government funded, it is a question on the tender document. How do you do it? How do you behave? We were doing Project Borbia. It's one of the big. If there's a percentage in awarded to what you do sustainably and how do you back that up. So
those questions really only started coming after we'd already done it. They started coming around 22, 23, and we'd started that process in 21.
Okay.
And one of the other ones that's in that we do is so we have a team. Most of the team are in the studio, and so on a Monday we do a shop and get loads of kind of vegetables and bread and salad stuff and that, so we can make food together.
Okay.
And we switched our shopping to the urban co-op. The urban co-op.
Oh yeah.
So they deliver the food to us, so more of it is local.
Okay.
As local as possible.
Yeah.
Harder this time of year. More is organic where possible.
Yeah.
But it's just it's about trying to use whatever purchase power we have as well to make that sustainable commitment real. It's a small way, but if we all do those small pieces, then together
exactly, it's the little steps amongst everyone that help. Before we finish up, I want to have a chat about GASP. I had the pleasure of attending this year, and I got to see some of the storytelling, going back the storytelling aspects of it, which was very interesting for me to see how someone brings something to life through storytelling, because you're focused on data and you think automatically, oh yeah, this went up by 10%, that is the story, and sometimes you actually have to put a bit more to that. So I came away with a bit of knowledge from that, and definitely a bit of awareness about my own work. But when it comes to your work and organising a conference like that, how important is it to bring a conference for creatives forward, but I think then bring it forward on a regional basis rather than again having to get the train up to Dublin. And the room looked great and it was packed, so how important is it for your industry, and like are we expecting that you're kind of going to continue this on?
And shout out to IDI and also Innovate Limerick and the Limerick City and County Council, who all supported us through that, and so I definitely say it's a partnership rather than just Piquant. We really worked hand in hand with those organisations to make it happen. So we think it's really, really important. It is important to get industry together, but I think as well, because our industry is relevant for every other industry. Every other industry needs to understand communications and marketing and branding and storytelling, because that's just in a sense, it's like every organisation also needs to understand tax and HR and the legal side of things. And so it is important for the region, for business in the region, to understand that and to have a sense of it and to see that that's possible in Limerick. And we really are always kind of waving that flag that you can have a professional, creative life and not live in Dublin. Nothing against Dublin. Connor's from Dublin.
Yeah.
Oh no, really?
We love Dublin. Nothing against Dublin. But it's just that we think that is an important message to get out. And so we do like bringing people together. Like I said, community is one of our core values, and that's a way to live that.
With GAS though, we do ask people to focus on the challenges they're having doing what they're doing, so a lot of design conferences you've people standing up and they're showing incredible work, and it's not a design conference, it goes beyond that, but that's my experience going to design conferences, they're showing incredible work. And when people talk about the hardship they had in creating that work, or the hardship they had with bringing the client online, or connecting with the client, or getting the client to sign off an idea, or to be brave, or to do something interesting, that's really what's interesting. So with GAS, I think we're asking people to tell us about the hardship, how hard it is. The business is hard, So tell us
about... It's like your stonemason.
Yeah. We want the story. So on the stage, like we purposely, it's not about just presenting amazing things that are. We want to hear about the hardship of creating that thing, because everyone's seen it already before they came to the conference on your Instagram or your YouTube. So it's really about the stories behind it. The stories about doing work and overcoming things, insight, things you've learned along the way that can. Jesus, and as as technology changes, AI mainly, we need a lot more of that, The industry isn't massive in Ireland, and everyone has work. So, it's about sharing together and bringing Irish design up, Irish communication design up to an international standard. It's there already. There's amazing work happening, but it's about doing that strongly, going out and kind of sharing resources, sharing experiences, and then just sharing.
And I suppose, like, I was a big fan of this when I saw it online, but the hot sauce, I thought it was very creative.
I brought you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned it.
Thank you very much. It's lovely. I'm delighted to have one in real life.
But
I was a huge fan of your hot sauce series. Was that a whole part of the storytelling, because it was a real kind of team aspect of it, and a behind the scenes?
Yes.
Is that what it was all about, the storytelling of Piquant through the medium of sauce?
It is. It is. So there's a few elements to that, right? First of all, people often ask about the name Piquant, and that is what it does mean. It is about kind of not sauce but spicy. And so we, as I said, we do eat together at lunchtime, and we do like hot sauces. And so it all kind of came together, and then we wanted to give a gift to friends and clients. And so it all culminated in let's make a hot sauce, and we collaborated with an actual hot sauce company. So we didn't mix it up ourselves, but we went to them and they developed a recipe. Connor was sent up to be the taster. I don't know if you saw the video of him. He thinks he's a hard man. Chilies.
Yeah. You're harder than I am, Connor.
It made me cry. It made me cry.
I would be in trouble. So we're going to finish with some quick fire questions. Kind of one couple of word answer for Bodhi. So the hardest truth you've learned in business, Roisin?
The hardest truth is that to get out of my own way.
Okay. You can't take Roisin's answers now, Connor. So
no.
What's your hardest truth?
We're always cautious at the start when it comes to hiring. We're always hiring services that we could sell on. We're in the business of selling ours, but hiring people to make the business run better, project coordinators, things that don't relate to invoiceable hours going out, took us a while to cop onto that. And then once you do it, it's just like, Jesus, why didn't we do this at the start? So we were busting our backs. I was going to say something else. Doing all the hard work, and letting the people you're hiring do the creative work, and really it's like when we get good coordinators in there, things just happen. So it took us a while to figure it out, and once I figured it out, it's like,
life is easy.
Penny drops.
Yeah. And if you could give yourself, your 21-year-old self, one piece of advice, what would you say?
Be compassionate of my own self, and that will help me be more compassionate towards others.
Yeah, I get that one. What about you, Connor?
If you're 21, you have so much time to waste. You could spend 10 years going in the wrong direction and still be massively successful in life. Shoot from the hip, go for it.
It's not the first time we've heard something along those lines.
Yeah, shoot from the hip. Just loads of time to make mistakes.
I suppose a book, podcast, or idea that has had the most influence on you as a business leader.
So one of the books that I have read, I'm not a huge fan of reading loads of business books because I read in the evening and I find that kind of like wakes me up instead of sending me to sleep. But I did enjoy that one, Eat the Frog. That idea of getting the biggest problem out of the way in the day. So it's very operational. It's about how to make the most out of your day rather than big thinking of your business. So I did find that helpful.
Yeah. What about you, Connor?
Noah Harari, the book Sapiens or Nexus is his most recent one on kind of information systems, which is basically about AI. But I find his holistic view of the world makes it very easy to come in and just question everything. We're in the communications industry. What is it? It's arbitrary. It doesn't really matter. Nothing really matters. We're just people moving forward, and we create these patterns, create these structures. So I find his kind of holistic perspective on the world and how the world behaves fascinating, and always allows you to kind of question things, kind of going, oh, we should do it that way because that's the way they do it, and you're kind of going, that's nonsense,
Sounds like a very relaxing and light read, Connor.
They're great books. I'm a very slow reader, incredibly slow. It takes me a long time to read these books, but I retain them. I remember them.
I read fast and forget.
I'm an incredibly slow reader, so I don't read that many. I don't read as many books as I'd like to. Have a few stacked up.
I'm the same.
Podcast, Diary of a CAO is really good. I know a lot of people listen to that, but it is very good, and it has a lot of stuff on AI recently, which is opens up,
the whole discussion. And I suppose, what do you want your legacy to be in Limerick in the Midwest? In one word, if you could define your legacy.
You're going to struggle with one word, Connor. One word. My one word will be possibility.
Very good.
Impactful.
Oh, very good. That was very good.
Yeah. So impactful. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Impactful and effective. Has an outcome.
Look, thanks very much for coming on the podcast, and I appreciate the hot sauce.
Yay.
Thanks
Thanks
for having us, Sean.
Really
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That's all for today's episode of Limerick Chambers Three Bridges podcast. I'd like to thank our sponsors, AIB, and our producers, Big Handsome Media, as well as our guests, Connor and Roisin Buckley of Piquant.